Listeners, are you ready for your monthly literary adventure? We now have the BFF Book Club. Join us each month to explore a new book. After reading, connect with fellow book lovers and meet the author in a live interview. Can't make it live? Don't worry. We'll send you the recording. You can find all the upcoming book club selections at www.bookishflights.com/read/BFF book club. Hey there, BFFs. It's me, Kara, your host today, and I've got an extra special bonus episode for you. Today marks the start of Season 3. I cannot believe it has been a lovely 2 years with you all. To give you a peek at the numbers, Season 2 consisted of 62 episodes, 59 book flights, and 183 books recommended. That is truly amazing, especially if you've been reading them all. I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much for being here. The show wouldn't be a show without you, my dear listeners. If I could ask one favor of you, if you wouldn't mind sharing this podcast with a friend or leaving a review on your favorite podcasting app. Your word of mouth is the best way to reach others for the show. Today, I am here to tackle the question that I keep seeing around and find absolutely absurd. Are audiobooks considered reading? Whether you're a devoted audiobook listener like I am or a defender of traditional print, I think this is a topic worth exploring so we can settle this debate once and for all. I did a bit of research on this topic, so you don't have to. I've got historical context for you today, as well as the science behind reading. So let's see if we can settle this debate once and for all. So let's start our journey today on the evolution of reading. What does reading really mean? Historically, we know that reading evolved alongside language itself. Oral storytelling predates the written word by thousands of years, and we know this. For most of human history, stories were passed down verbally. The invention of the printing press in the 15th century revolutionized how we consumed stories and information. Reading then became synonymous with visualizing the text. Now we fast forward to the 20th century, and the invention of audiobooks have added a new dimension again to reading. Originally, they were called talking books. Audiobooks were developed in the 1930s for the blind community. Over the decades, they've transformed into a mainstream format, offering accessibility and convenience for readers of all kind, which we'll take a look at today. But has their rise redefined what we considered reading? Or could it be back to passing down stories in the verbal nature, right back to where we began? I'd like to take a look now at the research behind cognitive science and comprehension. Numerous studies have examined the differences between reading text and listening to audiobooks. The general consensus on them? There's minimal difference in comprehension for most people in either form. For instance, in a 2016 study from the University of California, Berkeley, they found that when participants listened to audiobooks and read the same material, the same areas of their brain actually lit up during the MRI scans. This suggests that whether you're reading with your eyes or listening with your ears, your brain processes the content similarly. However, there were a few caveats. The first is that actively engaging with the content matters. With both formats, comprehension decreases when people are multitasking or not fully focused. I laugh because I've been guilty of this in both formats, whether in audio or on print. The second caveat is that retention depends on the medium. Some people retain information better when they physically read because they can visualize the text on the page, underline passages, or take notes. Others benefit from the auditory reinforcement of an audiobook. Think about when you were in school. Did you ever do that test to see what type of learner you were? Visual, auditory, kinesthetic? What we can look at here is that people learn differently. So ultimately, both formats are valid ways to engage with a story or learn new information, but our personal preferences and differences are going to affect how we will consume the content as an individual. I think one of the strongest arguments for considering audiobooks as reading is their accessibility. For individuals with visual impairments, learning disabilities like dyslexia, or other conditions that make reading physical text difficult, audiobooks are not just an alternative, they're essential to their reading. I also can attest that audiobooks make stories more accessible to people with busy lives. Can't you? We're juggling work, family. We can listen during our commutes or while doing chores, exercising, traveling, or just relaxing. These are practical benefits, and they have contributed to a huge surge in audiobook popularity in the recent years. Does that make audiobooks a lesser form of reading? I don't think so at all. In fact, many educators and librarians argue that audiobooks can foster a love for stories, especially in reluctant readers or those who feel intimidated by larger chunks of text. Something else to consider is the unique experience that audiobooks offer. When you listen to a story, you're not just consuming text. You're also engaging with the narrator's interpretation of the story. A talented narrator can bring characters to life, add emotional depth, and enhance the storytelling experience. Take classics like Jim Dale's narration of the Harry Potter series, or audiobooks where they have multiple actors and stage music portraying different characters and scenes within the book. Their performances elevate the text and make the story more immersive, and to me, it is a delightful literary feast. Lastly, I want to talk about audiobooks for children. Many parents will also wonder the same question if audiobooks count as reading for kids. And I think that we have determined today that the answer is a resounding yes. Audiobooks can play a pivotal role in developing literacy skills, fostering a love of stories, and making reading accessible to all children. I'd like to add a caveat here, though, is that I still think that us reading aloud to our children is the most beneficial thing that we can give them. And an audiobook is not going to replace us reading aloud to them. But let's take a look at the research that has shown that audiobooks actually help children expand their vocabulary, improve comprehension, and develop listening skills. Amen for that, right, parents? For younger kids, hearing books read aloud introduces them to new words and sentence structures that they might not encounter in everyday conversations. For older children, audiobooks can model fluent reading and help them tackle more advanced material that might feel daunting in print. As I said before, audiobooks are also a fantastic tool for reluctant readers. For some kids, struggling to decode text can overshadow the joy of getting lost in a story. Audiobooks remove that barrier for them, allowing children to immerse themselves in the narrative while still gaining exposure to rich language and storytelling. And let's not forget the power of shared experiences. One of my idyllic dreams with my family is to sit around a fireplace and all read these great literary classics together. But let's turn this conversation to a family audiobook. We use audiobooks for our long car rides. Listening together as a family can spark conversations about the story and create lasting memories. Some great family-friendly audiobooks that we've loved have been Poppy by Avi, The Wild Robot by Peter Brown, or Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. Finally, as we talked about earlier, audiobooks are an invaluable resource for kids with learning disabilities like dyslexia. For these children, listening to a book can level the playing field, allowing them to keep up with their peers and fully engage with literature. It's not about replacing the print books, but providing an alternative pathway to literacy for them. So, are audiobooks considered reading? The answer largely depends on how we define reading, right? Scientifically, we saw that our brains engage similarly to text-based reading with an audiobook. Practically, they make stories and information more accessible to people than ever before. And culturally, they're a legitimate way to enjoy and interact with literature. At the end of the day, the format matters far less to me than the connection that we build with the stories we are reading. Whether you're flipping pages, swiping on an e-reader, or pressing play, what truly counts is the joy, learning, and perspective that books can bring into our lives. Thank you for joining me on this episode today. If you're a fan of audiobooks, I'd love to hear what favorite narrators you have or favorite titles. I'm always looking for recommendations. Or if this episode resonated with you, I'd love to know your thoughts. Find us on Facebook or Instagram at Bookish Flights, or head on over to our website, bookishflights.com. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.